Today we've got a great story of a Redditor taking advantage of an opportunity of a lifetime to get back at their own mom. We'll get into that in a bit, but first, eat your vegetables and leave me out of it. For context, I'm allergic to broccoli and spinach. It's bad enough that I avoid restaurants that serve these veggies steamed because a cloud of that steam anywhere near me causes hives, gastric distress, etc. My parents were both divorced and remarried to incredibly strict people. For some reason, the step-parents were typically in charge of dinner time. There was neglect, but that's a big can of worms, and were very strict around vegetables. I remember a time my stepdad dumped a can of spinach onto a plate, did not heat it up or remove the water, and served it for dinner. He's an all-around POS, so when I refused to eat that, I would be berated and beaten. Birthgiver was in school at night. I always knew that I couldn't eat broccoli or spinach because in the past it would cause me to throw up pretty much immediately. I often went without food at all since I didn't eat my vegetables. The smells from cooking made me nauseous and wheezy, and we had to ask for permission to have a snack. You already know how that went for me. Since high school, I've been 5'6" and only weighed 90 to 95 pounds the first 3 years. I was even a late bloomer due to being functionally malnourished my entire childhood. For example, I didn't get any acne until I was almost 18. Context out of the way, I started seeing a new physical therapist a few years ago. Every doctor-type office asks about allergies, so I wrote down broccoli, spinach, and some other things. When PT approached me with the paperwork, she asked, "Are you actually allergic to broccoli and spinach? Or did you just see that to get out of eating it like my kids?" I felt waves of memories come flooding back and turned cold inside. I was now deadpan saying, "Are you like my parents who assume children lie all the time and force them to eat things, even when life-threatening allergic reaction symptoms are present?" She never brought it up again. I hope that led to an important conversation with her family about food preferences. Even if her kids would lie about something like that, in my opinion, that means she should try a different recipe, or stop lying to her kids and teaching them to lie consequently. I highly doubt that adding seasoning to vegetables reduces any nutritional value. So, oddly enough, I feel like the last thing OP mentioned was kind of the most fascinating thing to me. Basically, as somebody that grew up in a household where we barely even knew what salt was, how do you spice up broccoli or spinach or whatever to make it more palatable? You just cheese it up or something? And also, does anybody else feel like the PT wasn't really all that out of line? Obviously, they couldn't have known OP's trauma involving broccoli and spinach beforehand and were just trying to make a joke. Should there be shame in how the PT brought things up like that? No Novel 7425 commented on the post. "Cilantro causes me to violently vomit. I haven't been tested for an allergy but have accidentally ingested it enough times to know what it does to me. It also tastes like soap to me, so I'm not mad about it and don't feel like I'm missing out on something a lot of people love. But I tell people I'm allergic just to avoid accidental ingestion. 9 out of 10 times I get, 'Are you really allergic or do you just dislike it?' I respond with, 'Well, it's both and I'm not gonna die from it, but would rather not spend my evening projectile vomiting as if I drink a bottle of Epicac.' Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you guys enjoy traumatizing revenge stories, it would be amazing if you left a like or left a review if you're listening to my podcast." Our next story is holding a narcissistic grandfather accountable. My 87-year-old grandfather is the most unaccountable person I've ever met. During a visit a few months ago, he said that if he ever hurt anyone that he was unaware of, that he would want to know so he could apologize. I presented him with an opportunity to do so in that moment, and wouldn't you know it, turns out he has no intention to own his part at all, ever. He brought in all kinds of unrelated things, deflecting, defending, demeaning, dismissing, etc., including myself, his granddaughter, who he decided in his prideful state that I was crazy, a nutcase, and nothing but a woman who is full of herself. I'm not someone who seeks to hurt people. I'm not malicious or vindictive, but I will tell you right now, this man is. And I've watched him be a bully my whole life. His deep insecurities about himself have fueled his cruelty towards his family, and I had enough. So I looked him square in the eyes after he had insulted pretty much everyone in the family, creating emotional chaos all because he simply can't just acknowledge his part, and I said, "You can call me whatever you want, But the truth is that you did nothing to protect my mother when she was younger. And she may be afraid of you, but I'm not. The truth is that you're illiterate and you can't read. And you feel stupid, so you make everyone else around you feel stupid to feel better about yourself. You are a bully and a coward. So yeah, I said it, and I meant it. Under no circumstances will I ever tolerate someone who demands all this respect and gives none in return. This man is not a grandfather. He's a large child who has no empathy or compassion for anyone except for himself. Now, I don't know how this person was when they were younger, like if they were a little bit more like physically intimidating, but considering they're 87 years old, it must feel a little bit cathartic to be able to say what you've been kind of holding back for probably all of your life and observing, and knowing that they just have to sit there and stew in it. I guess really the only real disappointing thing for me is the fact that he had to wait till 87 years old to hear this. Hellscape Goat commented on the post, "There's a piece of crap uncle in my family who is 74 years old and mistreated my late mother and I. He tried to make me out to be crazy when I called him out on some of his behavior. I was loath to really tell him off because of his age. He keeps contacting me after being told he was blocked. This helped remind me to tell him what a piece of crap he is and that I'm ashamed that he is any relation of mine despite his age. They are never too old." Our next story is Scary Mode. So this is a very short story, but I'm feeling pretty satisfied about it. Basically, I was at the Ren Fair with a couple of friends, and me and my closest friend had been separated from the other two. We went into a shop, and there were real, incredibly well-constructed, beautiful corsets. Now, I love corsets, but they aren't in my budget at the moment and probably won't be for another couple years. So I said to my friend, "These are beautiful. It's a shame I'd never be able to afford them." Just then, two teenage boys appeared from seemingly out of nowhere, but actually from behind a rack of clothes. They were looking at us with those predatory looks I usually only see in the eyes of grown men, like they're about to jump us. A bad start to say the least. Now, in my Ren Fair outfit, smiling and laughing with my friend leaning on my cane, I probably look like an easy target. So one of the boys says, "These corsets are so pretty, which one do you think would look the best on me?" Now, if he wasn't giving that creepy butt look, I would have answered him, but he was, so I just stared back at him. His friend said something creepy that I don't remember. I remember after he said it that my friend walked away disgusted. Now, I've been told all of my life that I have a horrifying energy about me. No one has a good first impression of me because unless I really try not to be, I'm intimidating. I have terrified grown men. I'm certainly not scared of two boys. So when the first boy blocked my path with a wide erratic motion and moaned, I looked at him, turned into my horrifying energy, and I asked loudly, full of deep rage, "Do you mind?" I honestly thought I was being pretty calm, but my voice did drop an octave. I was prepared for a full confrontation. I thought we'd have a bit of back and forth before I actually managed to scare them off, but he just stood up awkwardly and looked down and said, "No, sorry ma'am," and he and his friend literally ran away. I saw them headed towards the exit, so I'm pretty sure they left the Ren Fair. My friend was telling our other friends about the story and misremembered it as me fully cussing them out, so I must have been a bit more scary than I meant to. Anyway, I just thought that was a funny story you guys might enjoy, even if it is really small and truly unintentional. Why do I feel like what OP did here would be like a feature on some kind of like primal behavior explanation thing? I feel like I can hear David Attenborough's voice telling me about how the hunted made it clear to the hunters that they were no easy prey. Kitty Wumpus commented, "I have what I call resting angry face. Like, I'm totally ticked off at you and I'm ready to throw down. There have been multiple times in my life when I stare off into ADHD land and somebody comes up and cautiously asks me what's wrong, and I'm just, huh? I'm about as mild as a temperament as you can get, so people who know me know it's just how I look. But when I do get angry, it's like Moses parting the Red Sea. It's very useful sometimes." Our next story is The Tale of the Flasher. Okay, so a comment I made on another post got some traction, so I thought, gather round kids, let me tell you the tale of the D-Flasher. The scene is suburban Australia, 1997, and I, a 21-year-old young Doja Nat, am walking through the dark streets from the train to her boyfriend's house. I'm gonna switch back to the first person now. So I'm walking down the street and this bloke comes up to me and asks if I have the time. I look down at my watch and he then says, "Have a look at this." And he's shaking this flaccid, sad little worm at me. I'm a little shaken, but then I remember I'm a bad butt jerk and start laughing maniacally. I say, "You call that a D? That's a freaking joke." "Oh yeah, mate, I'm so scared of your micro." "Ooh, what's it gonna do? Wobble flaccidly at me?" He starts backing away. This isn't going the way he planned. Girls are supposed to be scared. "No, mate. This is pre-smartphones, but I did have a Nokia, so I whipped it out and pretended to call the cops." He's backing away faster now. I'm hollering into my fake phone call. "Yes, officer, I've got this filthy perv with a tiny D assaulting me." Yes, I can describe him perfectly. And that's when mate panics. He starts whipping off his clothes as I start running behind him. The adrenaline is pumping now. I'm chasing him, screaming like a banshee. "Yes, officer, he's in a blue hoodie and a black cap. He's bald as freak and fat." Mate is running so fast now, I can hear him panting, his chest sticking to his t-shirt, sweat pouring from his brow. This is trauma 1. This stupid little D-flasher knows his stupid little game has no power. He will get no satisfaction tonight. Maybe ever again. Maybe he's still running. I realize I've won at this point. Mate is gone, but I start to get scared. What if he comes back mad? I still need to get home. I knew my boyfriend was en route walking to meet me, so I thought, this is a cool neighborhood. I'm gonna knock on the first door and ask if I can wait on their veranda till my boyfriend walks past. I approach the first house, knock, and this lovely girl around my age answers. I start to tell her my tale and she's like, "Come into the house, I'll get you some water." Folks, trauma 2 is about to happen. So I'm walking behind her, telling the story, and just as I get to the bit where I say, "And then he whipped out his junk," we enter the kitchen, and there's this girl's entire household, including her little old Nana slack-jawed staring at me. Nana drops her fork, the other housemates gasp, and I start apologizing profusely. I don't think Nana had ever heard the word junk before, and certainly not from the lips of a strange blonde girl. I skedaddle so freaking fast, thanking the girl for her kindness. To the girls in that house and your Nana, I'm so sorry. I never meant to traumatize an old lady. So I just want to throw a quick clarification in. I couldn't say the actual word that was there in the place of junk. It was a word that roughly meant a much more specific version of the same thing that started with a C. If you know, you know. OP walked into that old lady's kitchen saying, "And he whipped out his," you know what. I guess OP kind of had a double kill here, traumatized the guy and the old lady. Tiaza Silver commented, "Nana was probably just surprised. If she's that old, she's had to deal with her share of idiot perverts." OP responded commenting, "No one wants a strange girl in the kitchen shouting about junk." Our next story is when your boss has the situational awareness of a fruit fly. I've been lurking here for a while and thought of something that happened a few years back at my old job and thought I would share with the class. It's nothing too out there, but dang did it give me some satisfaction after the fact. I'm on mobile, so I apologize in advance for formatting. This is a little long, but was something that truly satisfied me to my bones, and I want to set the scene for everyone reading. And no, this is not AI slop. There's always that one guy. In 2020, I, female 19, worked in retail during peak Rona outbreak. I was an overnight stalker at a grocery store and often worked in cold areas, so I was frequently left alone to work. We had recently gotten a new boss and, just for chuckles in tradition, we'll call her Karen. Female, 50s. Just to get a feel for Karen, she was a micromanager. Obviously, we all had to wear face masks for health purposes. I worked in a cooler and had a coworker in there with me. The fans were pretty loud, so he and I had to talk over them to hear each other, and the masks muffling our words didn't help much. The thing about Karen is she has a heavy lisp, partially due to having braces. No judgment, a very nasally voice, and she has a tendency to mumble. When she came into the cooler, she began talking to us, and we understood absolutely nothing due to the fans and her mumbling and speech impediment. We had asked her to repeat herself a couple of times because she would not speak up, nor were we allowed to exit the cooler, and she got mad and pulled her mask down to scream at us. Basically, our whole overnight team couldn't stand her or her attitude. Now on to the actual story. My grandma passed in August of 2020, not due to COVID. We were extremely close and I saw her on her deathbed when I went to see her in the hospital. It was a miracle they even let me in, but I was grateful they did because that was the last time I got to see her. And she was already cold to the touch. She had taken a sudden turn for the worst and was gone by the next morning. Her passing hit me really hard, and eventually I'd gone into a multiple substances bender, and honestly I'm shocked I didn't end up hospitalized myself. I'm happy to say that stuff is well behind me, but it's mentioned to emphasize how hard of a time I was going through. My job allowed 3 paid days off for bereavement, so I was waiting until her service to take it and take a couple of days after to mentally regroup. My mom had been texting me that evening talking details. Hard conversations, but they have to be had, you know? I was out on the sales floor stocking bacon and left to my own thoughts. I eventually started to tear up because the day of her service was getting closer and it was just a really hard time for me. All of my bosses were made aware of my loss, and they were all very understanding that I wasn't going to be operating at 100% because my mind just wasn't in it. Except Karen. Karen had been walking around breathing down people's necks as usual, and she finally came around to me. She started griping about my cart not being done. I was still within cold chain and had been out there with it for no longer than 10 minutes. I also had to rotate everything I was putting out because first in, first out when it comes to food. So there was really no reason to snap at me when I was still moving at a pretty decent pace. The thing about me is I'm not confrontational, but I do not take kindly to yelling due to CPTSD. I will probably cry or be angry in silence and just sit there and take it. Overall, I was a very quiet and kind of timid person at that point in my life. Karen began grabbing boxes and passive-aggressively stalking less than 2 feet away from me, because screw the 6-foot rule, I guess, and noticed I had tears rolling down my face. She looked at me and said, "What's wrong with you?" I wiped my eyes with my sleeve and kept working. "I'm thinking about my Nana. Her funeral's in a couple of days and I have to pick out flowers for her casket. Her birthday was supposed to be in 2 weeks, I replied. Karen actually huffed at me, and I looked up just in time to see her rolling her eyes at me. "Well, just don't think about that. It's not hard," she snapped. I kind of stared at her for a second, not really able to believe she just said that to me. I wanted to slap the metal out of her mouth. Instead, I slammed my box down and walked away and went to the bathroom and sat on the floor to have a good cry and just gather myself and calm down. A coworker witnessed the interaction and came in to check on me, but left after a couple of minutes so I could just have a moment alone. After my bereavement, I came back to work and I was a little quieter and steered clear of Karen. Just looking at her instantly made my blood boil now, but when forced to interact, I pretended nothing happened and continued to be polite. Another thing about me is that I use humor to cope with trauma and pain. This is important for this next part. Fast forward a couple of weeks, and on my day off, I came in to shop with a friend. We had gone to the garden center and picked out a beautiful orchid for my grandma for her birthday. I was still celebrating because it's what she would have wanted, and she loved orchids. As I was walking to the front to check out, I was admiring the orchid when I heard that nasally, nails on chalkboard voice, "Karen." "Ooh, getting an orchid, huh? How pretty." She was standing next to our boss, her supervisor. Karen had her mask pulled down like a chin strap so she could drink her water, but hadn't pulled it back up. "Yeah, it's for my Nana," I replied happily. I was trying to stay positive, and I knew Nana would have loved what I picked out. It's important to note that Karen's supervisor was also aware of my grandmother's passing and had even given me this really sweet memory box before I went on bereavement and a note offering condolences from the store. It was really nice, and the box was made of wood and leather. "Well, I hope she can keep it alive. Those things die quick," Karen said. She kind of said it with a little laugh that irritated me. Her supervisor turned to her, and before he could say one singular word, I spoke without thinking. "Well, considering she couldn't even keep herself alive, I don't think it's gonna be her cross to bear," I said. I had absolutely zero emotion in my voice. My friend and I continued walking to the front, and in passing, I saw her supervisor's eyes get really big while Karen stood there opening and closing her mouth like a fish. I think I heard a strangled little, "oh," come out of her. My friend was holding her breath until we got far enough away and just started laughing. Eventually, I heard Karen's boss had chewed her out for being insensitive toward her employees after he found out about our interaction a couple weeks prior, and he just doubled down on her after her comment about the flowers. After all that, she at least pretended to somewhat care about the employees and their struggles. She retired a year later anyway and now sells life insurance. Was my response petty? Yes. Do I regret it? Absolutely not. I ended up staying with that company for 5 years and promoting to management, and it was bosses like her that made me hell-bent on being better and prioritizing my team's mental and physical well-being over numbers. And my team thrived because they knew they had someone in their corner that genuinely cared about them. Freak you, Karen. Once again, it's another person in a grocery store chain, or at least relatively similar, that despite being an awful person that doesn't seem to work well with any of the people there, still managed to stick around for another year. I had recently read another story on another video about a grocery store employee that was just so awful, yet they managed to keep their employment there even if they were just demoted. Like, how do these people do it? Is it just because you can't afford to fire somebody at a grocery store? Tribu commented, "Hi, scientist who works in a fruit fly lab here. Fruit flies have always been kind enough not to make me cry and have never disrespected my grandma. I will not tolerate the slander." Our next story is Bathroom Police. I was telling my mom my 5 minutes of fame on Reddit, and she told me my first attack she witnessed that I was too young to remember. Some background info. 1. Public toilets in China used to have someone in front charging a few cents for each person using. 2. I was born and raised in a hot and humid part of China, so my parents had my hair cut extremely short for convenience. 3. Though I live in the city, I visit my relatives in a rural village every weekend. Nudity among younger people is common there since it's hot. 4. I have mild autism and I haven't learned social practices at age 5. My dad took the family out for patio dinner with friends, and I had to use the public washrooms across the road. Apparently, I told my mom about my urgent need and ran away without waiting for an answer, so she had to run behind me with the money. The attendant woman for the public toilet yanked me back from running to the woman's bathroom because I looked like a boy. By the time my mom got there, she saw me scream, "I'm a girl," while dropping my pants. The poor woman let me go in stunned silence as I waddle my way to the toilet. My mom said she almost peed herself laughing. Yeah, this is one of those stories you hear about yourself and you're like, 1, I definitely do not remember that, and 2, there is no amount of slinking down into this chair that I can do that will allow me to feel even remotely okay. If that were me and I was being recounted this tale, I would probably be thinking, at least one of us can laugh about it. Pristine Pen 9885 commented, "There was a time when there were pay toilets in department stores. It was called Nick O'Lock. You had to deposit a nickel in the little thing on the door, and it would unlock the stall." Nurse Engineers replied, "I remember seeing those when I was a kid. When my grandmother didn't have the right change, she would have one of us grandchildren scoot under the door to open it for her. No attendant, no problem. Wink." Our next story is Principal Ripped Big Bro a New One. Not sure what flair belongs on this, and to be honest, I don't know the full details, only how things went afterwards. This also happened over 20 years ago when I was 9 or 10, but figured it might fit here. A little extra backstory for this. When I was a baby being potty trained, one of my siblings decided it would be so hilarious to tell me that there was a toilet monster. Made potty training heck for my poor mom, but she powered through it. Unfortunately, it left me still with a fear of staring into toilets for a very, very long time. Fast forward to 3rd grade, and I woke up with a stomach bug. My older brother, who was graduated but living at home with me and mom still, was supposed to be getting me ready for school since mom was at work. Until I threw up in the living room. He told me to take it to the bathroom, where I tried to aim the next one into the toilet but ended up missing because, hey, kid's still scared of the thing. Thank your siblings or maybe even yourself there, bro. So, me knowing I'm sick, I'm staying home, right? No, he made me grab my backpack and go to school still, where I proceeded to keep throwing up and for some reason got sent to the principal's office. I'm terrified, thinking I'm in trouble for being sick. Mr. F asks why I came to school if I was sick, and I told him my brother made me go and that there's no one who can pick me up because our mom was at work and couldn't be reached. He gets this serious look on his face and tells me to wait there while he goes to make a call. It doesn't take him long and he comes back to help me out to the short bus waiting in the lot for us. Yes, us. He gets on, tells the bus driver where to go, and when we pull up to the apartment, Mr. F walks me to the door and knocks on it several times before my brother answers, looking like he just rolled out of bed. Mr. F looks at me and tells me to go inside and go to bed, then turns to my brother. You, get out here. Now, I don't know what Mr. F said to him. I've never asked. Mr. F could be scary when he was mad sometimes, but I know one thing is that when my brother came back in, he was nice. He took care of me and didn't make a single complaint, and Mr. F didn't bring anything up either when I returned to school. But whatever he did must have put some fear and respect into my brother. Mr. F might have been a tough principal, but he was a kind one when it really mattered. I feel like this whole story is like a scene you see in like a coming of age movie where the kid finally has an adult figure who's looking out for them. And specifically, I imagine this scene being like you see silhouettes outside the door and all you can hear is just like really loud, argumentative rumble, rumble, rumble. The kids on the other side of the door looking shocked and stunned, but clearly no idea what's being said. You only make out something like, "So help me," as the brother like walks back in. Sorry guys, after this video I think I have to go do some creative writing for a bit. Glowing Trash Panda commented, "I wish I had a principal like that. Instead, back in middle school one night when both my parents forgot I existed and so didn't pick me up after a basketball game, I was a cheerleader, the principal got mad at me. He couldn't leave the school for the night until someone picked me up, and it took him like an hour before my dad answered the phone. Him and my mom were in the middle of one of their typical screaming matches, so they never heard their phones ring. The turd just told my dad that this better not happen again and stormed off to his car." Our next story is, "You pooed yourself in front of my friends." My mother is pretty much the worst person I know. She did horrible things to me, and I still am not over it. What I tell you here is just a small thing, not even close to the worst thing she did to me, and I know she will never be punished for the things she did to me, but when I was about 14, my first schizophrenia symptoms showed up. I was too afraid to talk to my mother about it because she never believed anything I said about my mental health. "Properly raised kids don't have mental problems, and you were raised properly," was her typical answer. So I talked about it with a social worker at school, and she convinced me to seek professional help, starting by talking to my pediatrician. I went to her to get info about psychotherapy and whatnot, but she just said to me she couldn't talk to me about that without my mother present. I pleaded with her to not tell my mother and just forget the conversation. The doctor did not, and when the pediatrician reached my mother to tell her what I said, she went ape crap on me, threw a mug with hot coffee at me, and called me a liar and worse. Years later, I was in my 20s and still had contact to her, I don't know why. It was once again time to tell the story from her perspective to her boyfriend's family, people I barely knew. She asked me if I remembered the time when I told lies about seeing and hearing things just to get attention. Normally I would have just let it slide, nod and be done with it, but I just got my diagnosis. Instead of saying that, I just reminded her of the nasty habit she had back in the day to run into me and fart whenever she had a man over, because she didn't want to fart in front of the guy. Didn't matter if I had friends over or not, she came in, farted loud, and went out, the smell lingering in my room, and one time, she pooped herself, dripping wet right in front of me and 3 of my friends. As I told my story in front of her new boyfriend and his family, she denied it, but her face was as red as a tomato and she almost cried. Then her new boyfriend said, "Yeah, that's kinda disgusting. I mean, I still can hear you in the living room." That moment, something in her must have died, because the next time I saw her, she apologized and never talked about me lying again. It was just a small victory and no reparation for years of abuse, but it felt good and still makes me smile to this day. Yeah, in no way does it make up for anything that OP experienced at all, but I guess at least you could say OP does have some kind of blackmail. You know, it must have been nice after OP's mom came and apologized to OP, for OP to be able to have that realization that, oh my god, they don't want this ever getting out there again. There's suddenly so much leverage in OP's hands because there's something that the mom actually is ashamed about. Go figure, all it took was poop. And Arbtube Tamil commented, I absolutely love this story. The fact that her boyfriend confirmed her farting habit is priceless. I hope you experience peace and joy every day for the rest of your life. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear some more traumatizing revenge stories, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.